He was inside the car for 30 seconds before the doors locked. He spent the next 4 days trying to get out. The car sat on a public street in Buenos Aires. People walked past it every hour. A police officer issued it a parking ticket. A woman fixed her lipstick in the reflection of its window. Nobody saw the man screaming on the other side of the glass. Nobody heard a single sound. The car was soundproof. The windows were polarized. The glass was bulletproof, a fact Ciro discovered when he shot through the windshield and the bullet came back into his leg. He chose the wrong car. The man who owned it had been waiting for exactly this moment for a very long time. This is 4x4. Ciro is a petty criminal in a Buenos Aires neighborhood where crime has become so normalized that residents measure their security in cameras per block and bars per window. He walks a quiet street at night and spots the SUV. No alarm visible, no obvious deterrent, sitting under a streetlight like an opportunity that chose to park itself directly in his path. He breaks in, takes the stereo, finds a pair of sunglasses and keeps those too. Before leaving, he urinates on the rear seats, a small act of contempt toward whoever owns something this expensive while people like Ciro live the way Ciro lives. Then he tries to leave. The door won't open. He tries every door. The trunk, the windows. He finds a tire lever in the back and swings it at the glass with everything he has. The glass absorbs it completely, not cracking, not flexing, simply indifferent to the impact the way a wall is indifferent to a fist. He rips the door panel off and reaches inside to the manual mechanism and shreds his arm on something designed specifically to prevent exactly that. He tears at the floor. He finds the gun in his backpack and fires point blank at the windshield. The bullet returns into his leg. Ciro sits in the back seat of a luxury car with a gunshot wound in his leg, a stolen stereo in his backpack, and a cricket he didn't notice until now as his only company. He takes off his shirt and presses it against the wound. Outside, Buenos Aires moves through its morning entirely unaware that a man is bleeding to death 30 centimeters from the sidewalk. A woman walks past. Ciro screams and hammers the glass with both fists. She adjusts her lipstick in the reflection and keeps walking. The polarized windows show the street a perfect mirror. The soundproofing converts his screaming into complete silence on the other side. He could be invisible. He is invisible. He picks up his phone to call his wife. The battery dies before she answers. 24 hours inside. No water, no food. The wound in his leg is becoming something worse than a wound. Ciro is licking condensation from the window glass when the stereo he stole activates on its own and a call comes through the car's system. A man's voice, calm, educated, 60 years old. He introduces himself as Dr. Enrique Ferrari. His car. He explains what Ciro already understands but hasn't fully assembled. The vehicle is entirely armored, the glass entirely bulletproof, the soundproofing complete, the locks controlled remotely from Enrique's phone. The only key that opens these doors belongs to Enrique. He is not in the car. He could be anywhere. Enrique tells Ciro something that the car's interior has already begun to suggest. This is not the first time. This is the 29th robbery Enrique has experienced in his lifetime. His home, his previous cars, his daughter's house while she was parking in her own garage. 2 men held a gun to his 5-year-old grandson's head for 3 hours. His daughter moved her family to Barcelona because Buenos Aires had become something she could no longer ask her children to grow up in. He asks Ciro one question before hanging up. What would you do if you found out your son was stealing? Ciro says he doesn't know. Enrique hangs up. The temperature drops. Enrique activates the air conditioning remotely, not to cool, to freeze. Ciro watches the temperature fall with no ability to override it from inside. He puts his shirt back on. He covers the air vents with torn pages from a book he found in the door pocket and pieces of the car mat. He sits in the back and shivers and waits. Enrique calls again. Same question, same patient voice, same waiting. What would you do if you found out your son was stealing? This time, Enrique doesn't wait for the answer. He tells Ciro about his daughter, the garage, the 3 hours with the gun against his grandson's head, the Barcelona flight. His voice doesn't shake when he describes it. That is the most frightening thing about Enrique. The complete absence of anger in a man doing what he is doing. He sounds like a man reading from notes he prepared in advance. The call cuts off when a police car pulls up beside the SUV. Ciro watches through the polarized glass as an officer steps out and walks a slow circle around the vehicle. Ciro screams, hammers every surface. The officer cannot hear a sound, cannot see anything through the mirrored glass. He pulls out his book and writes a parking ticket, places it under the windshield wiper, and drives away. Ciro watches the ticket flutter in the wind. Day 3. Ciro is eating pages from a book because hunger has moved beyond discomfort into something that rewires thinking. He is drinking his own recycled fluids because the only other liquid available is windshield washer fluid from a hose he found in the trunk. He has begun writing on the interior walls of the car, his name, his wife's name, his son's name, because his primary fear has shifted from dying to dying anonymously. He needs someone to know he was here. The cricket is still alive. Ciro considers eating it for approximately 1 hour. Then he opens the smallest gap he can manage in the window mechanism and lets it out. He watches it disappear into the street and feels something close to happiness. Enrique calls and tells Ciro about his test results that morning. The cancer has spread throughout his body. A year, possibly less. He says this the way he says everything, with the specific calm of a man who has already finished grieving and is now simply completing things. He tells Ciro something else. He found Ciro's file through a contact in the police department. He knows about Ciro's wife, Irina, his son, Lionel. He knows about the tire shop robbery, the owner who pulled a knife, the shot Ciro fired in response, the prison sentence that followed. He has been thorough. He tells Ciro he visited Irina, gave her $150,000 in cash, told her Ciro had won a lottery, advised her to buy a home, stop paying rent, and use what remained for Lionel's education. Enrique tells Ciro he is unworthy of his family. Then he hangs up. Day 4, Ciro manages to punch a hole through the door panel. Small, too small for anything useful, but a hole. He shouts through it until his voice is gone. Nobody stops. He is on a public street in a major city, and he is completely, absolutely alone. Then headlights appear outside. Enrique is here. The door opens. Dr. Enrique Ferrari is 60 years old, unremarkable, the kind of man you pass on the street without registering. He gets into the car carrying an air freshener and a cigarette, and the specific, unhurried manner of a man visiting a place he designed for exactly this purpose. He sprays the interior, sits, smokes. Then he extracts the bullet from Ciro's leg. Not because he feels compassion, but because allowing the wound to kill Ciro would end something before it is finished. He is a doctor. He does it efficiently. While Enrique is focused on the wound, Ciro reaches for the gun. He shoots Enrique once. Enrique is not seriously hurt. Ciro runs. He makes it to a convenience store, tears open a water bottle, grabs food from the shelf. The security guard approaches. He wakes up in the car. It was a dream. Ciro is still in the car, still wounded, still thirsty. He has been dreaming of escape so vividly that for 3 seconds he believed it was real, and the specific horror of understanding it wasn't is worse than anything Enrique has done deliberately. He raises the gun to his chin. Enrique calls. Ciro begs to see his son one more time. Enrique tells him the headlights will turn on. Look forward. The lights illuminate the street, and Enrique is standing in front of the car. He gets in, sits beside Ciro, extracts the bullet properly this time, and while Enrique answers a patient's phone call, Ciro reaches for the gun and fires. This time, he runs for real. Enrique pursues him. A policewoman on patrol intervenes before he can be taken again. Police arrive, then journalists, then onlookers. The entire neighborhood materializing around a man with a gun standing next to an armored car on a public street, demanding that someone acknowledge what has been happening to people like him for decades. The crowd doesn't disperse. They listen. A retired police negotiator named Amadio works his way through the onlookers and speaks to Enrique, quietly and at length. He describes his own life, alone, retired, no family, getting by on a pension that barely covers rent. He says none of this as manipulation. He says it because it is true and because he wants Enrique to understand that loss does not require an answer that makes everything worse. Enrique surveys the crowd and asks how many of them have been robbed. Most hands go up. He thinks about his daughter, about the memory she will carry of her father, the doctor, the widower, the man who lost too much and built an armored trap and sat in it until the cancer finished with the robbery started. He thinks about which version of himself he wants her to remember. He puts down the gun. Ciro is taken into custody. Enrique gets into his car. Amadio watches the car drive away and turns back toward the crowd. The car explodes. Enrique built one final thing inside his own vehicle, a countdown. His daughter will not remember the doctor who killed a thief. She will remember a man who spent his last year trying to make Buenos Aires understand something it had been refusing to hear, and who chose his own ending on his own terms before the cancer chose it for him. Ciro sits on the pavement surrounded by police and breathes the smoke-filled air and understands that the man who imprisoned him for 4 days was not his enemy. He was just a man who ran out of other options. Both of them were.